this is my Greetings API demo repo. So if you're like seeing all this agent stuff that we're talking about here at Dagger and like all over the internet, if you're looking for like ideas of how you can actually build these things to make your life easier as like a DevOps or platform oriented person, hopefully I'll be able to spark some ideas here with what I've built in this repo. So this repo is like a simple Go API that also has a really fancy front end, and we'll actually run it so you can see it later on. But the main thing is like it's a Go project, and I want to build a bunch of agents to kind of handle all the nasty stuff for me, so I can just write code or even just think of new features and then have the product kind of build itself. So the first agent of my whole fleet of agents here is when I create an issue on GitHub, I want to describe what a new feature of the product should be. And then I just want to add like a little slash command. So I've built all these different slash commands that we're going to walk through. And this one is slash develop. So when I type slash develop, I have this automation that I've built that we're going to look at that actually will pick up this issue and give it to an agent to actually develop the issue. And then as we can see here, open a pull request. So the agent Cal, which is the digital version of myself, will open this pull request, developing this feature for me. And so I've asked it to create a new endpoint in the API to add new greetings. So before this pull request, the API just serves a bunch of greetings in different languages. So now we want a new endpoint to actually be able to add new greetings to the API. So the agent picks that up, goes and develops the feature and opens this pull request, and we can look at what it's created here, which is a new endpoint, and it's exactly what we asked for. It receives it's a post endpoint that receives a payload that will add a new greeting to our greetings slice that's stored in memory. And so before we go into like the next agent in this flow, let's look at how this works real quick. So like I said, we had this slash command, and so we have a bunch of GitHub actions workflows here. And I'll just make this window a bit bigger and maybe try and make it fit on the screen. Okay, so we have a bunch of slash commands. So if I guide you through this YAML, we have one called slash agent that we haven't seen yet, one called slash review that we haven't seen yet, and this one called slash develop that we just looked at in action. And so when I type slash develop, and you can see that I'm not using any like fancy actions from the GitHub Actions Marketplace. I'm actually just when we have a new issue comment created, we go through and check if the issue is a pull request or not, because GitHub issues and pull requests are both types of issues, basically. So in this case, for this slash develop, we say if it's not a pull request and the comment contains slash develop, then we're going to do this thing. And so we've built in slash commands to our repo just by coding this logic using like the core components of GitHub Actions. And so when we call slash develop, we want to run this develop pull request function from our Daggerized project. And so let's look at that. We have develop pull request, and you might have seen this one featured in YouTube before. I'll just go through real quick like what this does. So it uses this GitHub issue module from the Daggerverse to read the information from the GitHub issue itself. So it reads the issue body, and that's the assignment for the agent. And then it will take that assignment and pass it to this develop function, which is the main agent here, right? So this is up here, develop takes an assignment and optionally a model. It defaults to Gemini 2.0 Flash, and I can probably update that to 2.5 now. And it has a prompt file and a workspace, which is just a submodule that we can look at as well, and passes all these things into an environment and gives that environment to an LLM with our prompt. And it even logs our total token usage so we can keep track of that, and then gives back the completed assignment. And so just digging a little bit deeper, our workspace submodule is just a Dagger module with functions to read, write, reset, tree, check, diff, all these things just basically in a file system workspace to give really precise tools to edit files in our code base, basically. And so with this, an LLM can easily modify files without giving it too much access to just kind of run around and break things across our code base. But most importantly, it has the ability to check its work. So by checking its work, as the agent is making changes to the code, it can actually run the tests to make sure that those changes are valid. And it's not just generating a bunch of random code. It's actually checking those to make sure that they pass all of our checks, right? One other cool thing to highlight here is that when we write, we also call the formatter for my project. And so that when it writes, it'll do like go format and lint dash dash fix. That way, as it's writing, we apply all the automatic formatting that we would have in our IDE for a developer. And that way, it doesn't have this like loop back and forth where it's just generating code and guessing what we want the code to look like, and then running the check and getting this failure saying, your indentation's wrong or something. So by applying this automatic formatting, we can actually save all these tokens by just helping out the agent a little bit when it's writing files. So anyway, back to this this workspace. So we have that workspace, and the other thing we passed in was a prompt. And so we can look at our set of prompts here, and this was called assignment. And so we have this little structured prompt that says, you're a programmer on the Greetings API. Here's how you should think through problems. Here's the assignment, and we use this $sign assignment, which we passed in through that environment. And then here's some constraints. So basically, as we're developing the agent and it goes off the rails and does something wrong, then we can look at that and understand why it is something wrong, and then adjust our prompt accordingly to make sure that in the future it'll be more reliable. Okay, so that's the develop function. And so we've called that from our develop pull request function. And so that gives us back basically the completed assignment, right? So we've completed whatever task that was passed in. And now with that, we're once again going to use this GitHub issue module from Daggerverse to open a pull request. So we ask another LLM real quick for like, what's a good title for this pull request based on the assignment we gave. So that's a fun little way of like just sprinkling in some more LLM things. And then once we have that title, we use that GitHub issue module to create a pull request, and we get back the pull request URL. And so in this flow in GitHub, now we've triggered it with that slash command. We've had our agent actually go through and develop the thing, and then it's open a pull request. By the way, if you haven't seen our docs lately, there's a new quick start guide called Add an AI Agent to an Existing Project. And it actually walks you through building literally what I just showed you with the Hello Dagger project. So if you're like, wow, this is really cool, I don't fully understand what Kyle just ran through, I wonder if I could build that myself, then this is where you want to go, where you can actually build it yourself in whatever language you want to work in. So that's fun. So go do that after this. But for now, keep watching me. And so we've opened a pull request with this solution. Now, if you're looking at the solution here, we had this post endpoint to add greetings. But myself, as the person that requested this feature, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, cool, that's great, but it looks like it's this like unauthenticated endpoint where anyone could just add greetings to my project. So what I want to do is, oh, by the way, we also have this helpful thing so that we can easily test our Daggerized project. So actually, while that's running, let's say we want to look at this. I'll just run this over here. And so we say, normally when I'm developing my project, I just call serve up, which runs the front end to back end. So I can run the whole application locally. And so by saying -m github.com, now it's pointing to the Dagger module on GitHub and pointing at this specific pull request. So I can test my pull request right here just by copying that command. And that is something that you could actually copy paste into your literal project without modifying that. So this is that the thing that posted that to my pull request was just this little action that adds a comment that says test this, and we already know what my repo is. We just add the PR number and it comments it. So that's pretty neat. Anyway, so we've looked at that. We actually want to add some authentication. So now I can say /agent. So we got this other / command that we saw earlier. The endpoint should be authenticated so that only someone with admin API key can access it. And I kind of help it out a bit here by saying the API key can be configured in an environment variable where the API is run, because we don't have that concept in the project yet. So we go back here and say, okay, what happens when I do /agent? So /agent calls pull request feedback. Makes sense. And this is maybe in this file. Okay, pull request feedback. So we've got another Dagger function, and it's really like a really similar shape to that develop pull request that we just looked at, except we're now getting feedback. So we kind of, instead of just passing in our project and an assignment, we need a bit more context, because we need to know, okay, what's the feedback? What was the original assignment we were trying to solve? What work's been done so far? So this function does all of that, right? It goes through and says, okay, here's the GitHub issue. And this is the description, was like our original assignment for the pull request. We get the head ref, which is like the current state of my pull request. We get the diff by using the diff URL off of that GitHub API. And so this gives us the code diff of the work that's been done so far in that pull request, just like we would look at in the pull request code tab. And then we pass that into an agent, once again, with all this information that it needs to solve the problem. And this looks really similar, right? So it gets a different prompt this time, which we can look at, but then it creates that same kind of workspace. It passes in a bit more information, like the original assignment, the feedback, and the code diff, and then gives us back the completed work. So it's going to be a new commit that it wants to push. And so once we get that completed work, it's going to call another function on that GitHub issue module that says create pull request commit, and it's going to say, here's the head ref, here's my new directory of work. We can actually just look at the help there. So here's the repo, the source directory, and the branch we're pushing that source to. And the prompt this time, very similar problem-solving process, except it says, like, consider the original intent of the pull requests and the feedback given, and the code diff, and understand what the feedback's asking for. And then we give all this information and very similar constraints. And so once that's done, let's go back here. Okay, so we did that / command, and then we can see it pushed up a new commit. And that new commit is like, okay, now we have this new auth middleware function that checks for, let's see, a bearer token to match something in the environment somewhere. Oh yeah, so when we call this, we have the os.getenv admin API key. So it added an auth middleware to our endpoint. So that's exactly what we asked for. That's perfect. So now I'm looking at that. I'm like, cool, let's like, it looks good to me. Let's see what our review agent looks like. So now we have another / command review, and this will go through, and basically we'll give it the workspace again to explore the code, and we'll give it a special prompt that says, you're reviewing a pull request. Once again, like, consider the assignment and how it solves that. Here's what a good pull request looks like. It should accomplish the task. It shouldn't have unrelated changes. It shouldn't be obviously malicious. So this is something, like, in my project, I can iterate on this criteria to refine, like, what this review should actually look at. And this is something, like, even as humans reviewing code, we probably all have slightly different internal prompts of what we're looking at when reviewing code. So this is a good thing, maybe just as a practice in your team, to, like, define what a pull request review looks like. Anyway, so the agent does that. It adds this review that says, cool, like, it adds that new endpoint, looks good. We could add tests for that new endpoint. That would probably be good. Add some logging. The middleware could be more generic. And then it says, I think the pull request is acceptable if we add some tests. And I'm like, yeah, makes sense. All right, so now we do the / command again, please add a test. And it's going to go and add a test for that endpoint. and it's going to set an environment variable and then run the API and then try and call that. Cool, makes sense. Oh, and then I guess it actually deleted some other tests, so I asked it to ask them back or add them back. So now we can look at this, and through, I think, what was that, like 4 different agents, we've kind of worked together to create this feature. And if we go over here, we can see this is running locally now. So I can actually go to host 8080. And this is my endpoint. There's hello world. If I go to 8081, that's our front end. And we can wave and see this greetings API running based on the content that pull request. And so one last thing real quick. So that's 4 agents, but we actually have a 5th one because we have also humans developing code for this as well. And so even though our agent always tests its code before it makes a pull request, humans don't always do that. So we have another one, and this one you might have seen feature on YouTube as well. But if we have a pull request that I opened as a human, you see it's me, it's not Calbot. And I pushed up this thing, and we can see by the little red X that our test failed. It's actually going to open the test fix for me. And then I can look at that fix and say, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I can hit the commit, which I've already done here. And then now the tests are green. And we can also look at this over in cloud and see how it did that. So we saw that the test failed, and it was like a lint failure. And we can see somewhere in here, oh yeah, the failure maybe. But then the agent picks it up, and we have that the prompt that the agent received says, okay, I got to fix the failing tests. And then it looks at all the tools we gave it. Let me bump this up a few more notches here. And then it looks around the project, figures out why the tests are failing, and then says, okay, the tests are failing in this main test.go. And we can see it ran the test just so it could get that failure. And I think maybe I'm looking at the wrong spot. Anyway, but you can see it got the failure because it says, okay, it looks like this test select greeting is getting this, but it's expecting this. And so it writes this change to our main.go, or main test.go, which is this thing. It runs the test again. It says, cool, looks good. Gonna save that. And when it saves that, it actually writes a PR suggestion, which is what we have here, which is something that I, as the developer of this PR, could just click accept. It could also just push the commit if we really trusted it to just push things. But I really prefer to just see these suggestions so that maybe it fixed them, but it fixed it in the wrong place, right? Because here we can see, okay, the fix was actually to change the test assertion, but maybe the real fix was to change my function, right? So we can go back and, oh, no changes. Oh, right, because it's just undoing what I did, basically. We can see what I did here was to change this foo to foo, and that's what it was undoing, essentially, when we look at that. So yeah, that's my 5 agents on this project, and they're all available to go look at in this greetings API. Yeah, any questions?
There's a question that came in, and then I have a question too. Showing the diff to the model is interesting. They're wondering, did you land on that after trying other things, like having the agent start from pool/123/head? Because theoretically, it could run git log.
Yeah, so the main thing, it could run git log. The main thing is the diff is like kind of the one-stop shop to see everything that's done so far. Where git log, it has to understand what's been done in this branch, what's where the history starts, basically. So the diff is just kind of one thing and one thing to look at to understand the whole context, where if you're doing that through Git, you'd eventually arrive through calling different tools at the exact same thing to convey the exact same information.
Probably depends, right? Like in the case where like everything was working and it just broke in the last commit, well, having that diff right there, super useful. versus if you need to understand the whole arc of the project over maybe many commits, could be a different assignment, right?
Potentially. I mean, usually, like if you're giving this feedback on a pull request, you're specifically talking about the scope in these changes, or maybe some additional changes that need to be made.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, like, I don't want to, in my feedback, I don't want to go through a ton of steps to explain like specifically what context I'm talking about changes. I want to be really vague, because that's kind of how we usually give feedback to humans as well, right? We know that they know the context of what's been done so far, and I'm saying the endpoint, right? I'm not saying this specific. I'm not saying the new post greetings endpoint. I'm just saying the endpoint, and so giving the diff allows us to be vague and talk like humans to the robot.
Got it. Yeah, I definitely, Nipuna, I don't know if you had any notes, but
No, this
feel
is
free.
yeah, this looks awesome. I had a question about the cache. Is it between comments? Is it saving the cache? Are you using like some kind of a cache here, or is it just doing everything from scratch for every
No, so
comment?
this is all from scratch, and that's why part of it is like loading that context, because you're actually really starting a new agent from the first one that pushed the pull request. So that's why we have to give it, you're a new agent. This is what the other agent tried to do, and here's what it did so far, versus like iterating on a continuously running thing that you might have in like a local loop working with an agent.
Right, right. Nice.
Very cool. Yeah, a couple other things that, I mean, I totally clued in on what you were saying, Kyle, about how these the prompts, really could embody the standards, the practices of your team, the important maybe compliance points even that you might have. So I thought that was really a great point. How you could really tweak those to reflect your team's exact needs there.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I actually really want to incorporate into this demo is, a lot of projects have like a coding style or contributing guide markdown as part of the project. So I want to pull that into the agent so it understands, how to work with this project using information that it was written for people.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think one other cool trick that I saw that maybe not everyone has noticed is what's over in your GitHub Actions YAML for the slash commands. One, that you had these cool slash commands, which was awesome. But two, also just like at the top of the file, how you have those very simple, using the actions checkout to just make sure that, all this code that you wanted to use was here on the runner, but also that single line of install
Oh yeah.
Dagger for GitHub, just to make sure you had Dagger present. But maybe folks have used that to run Dagger previously, but didn't realize you could just make sure Dagger was installed properly.
Yeah, like a lot of people would probably use this action like this, and they might say like call foo, right, or something like that, or pass in everything here and use this as all in one. But if you don't pass anything to this action, it just acts like a setup action where it just installs Dagger for you. So now in all of my other successive commands, I just say Dagger call whatever. And this is cool because this is the exact same thing that I can copy and paste and run locally, right?
Absolutely. Very, very cool.
And one question I think for the whole group that I'd love to kind of talk about, and especially for people who may be watching who haven't built an agent with Dagger yet, we're seeing so much around, hey, we have all these agents that do XYZ but obviously as people who are building agents with Dagger all the time, like what are you seeing that makes it so much easier to not only build agents, but also like use these agents compared to what you're seeing out there today? Because I know, for example, like the reusability, the using it locally, things like that are things that come up regularly. So I wasn't sure if there's anything else that I wanted to call out for people who may be seeing all the news of additional agents out there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing for sure is, like you said, that is portable. So like, especially the way that I've built these functions is that, you know, this, if we go back to that develop one, for example, that we really walked through, this develop agent, I can run from anywhere. I can run it from my command line because all I have to pass in is an assignment. And then I'm creating like the GitHub side of it in a separate function that just wraps it. So I'm not baking all this stuff into one big function. I'm separating it so that I can run this anywhere I want. And the other thing is this is very highly specialized to my project. So if you're trying to use you know, the new Copilot features in GitHub where you can ask it to solve a feature, that might get really far in certain scenarios, but it doesn't have the project specific things. Like it's not able to run my Dagger checks when it's writing things. It's not able to call my formatters when it's writing things. And these are things that I've been able to bake into my agent by kind of creating a specialized agent for my project.